Hello, everyone, and welcome to Literary Tales. I'm your host, Paul Krause, and in this episode, as we continue to explore the great books of the Western tradition, we turn to Cicero and his work on the Republic. Cicero is perhaps the most famous of the Roman Stoic philosophers. He wrote many philosophical and political works, the two most famous being on the Republic, or on the Commonwealth, and the Laws. We will begin to look at Cicero'S Anthropology in this first episode on the Republic and how it influences his views of political philosophy. The title, The Republic, is a direct homage to Plato. Cicero was an avid reader of the Greeks and began to incorporate Greek philosophical ideas into his own work. While Roman Stoicism had a decidedly more political nature than Greek Stoicism and Cynicism, it also shared with Greek Stoicism the idea that the passions were bad and needed to be purgated from one's soul in order to live a good life. When you are a slave to the passions, you need rationality to purge it so you don't fall into folly, disappointment, and emotional behavior that often leads to destruction. This is what Roman Stoicism shares with Greek Stoicism. However, the Roman Stoics advocate an active, participatory, and engaged public or political life because this is deeply embedded in us. We are, as Aristotle said, and Cicero agreed with Aristotle here, that we are political animals. Cicero opens his treatise by reinforcing the old belief common in the ancient world of philosophy that humans are social or political animals. Cicero, in between the lines, also critiques, from what we can recover from quotes within Cicero's introduction, that while Greek Stoicism and Epicureanism have certain values and validity to it, their ultimate direction of leading individuals away from community is something that we should reject. Their lack of patriotism, love of land, people, and community is ultimately something we shouldn't try to emulate. Cicero writes, "Nature has given to mankind such a compulsion to do good and such a desire to defend the well-being of the community that this force prevails over all temptations of pleasure and ease." There we can see the implicit critique of Greek Epicureanism, and indeed even Stoicism, which advocates a retreat from community into small individual cliques to achieve the good life. While Cicero speaks of desire here, Cicero believes desire is natural, but that it is properly a pathway that directs us to wisdom and knowledge, in other words, to reason. We crave knowledge and wisdom, but in attaining it, satisfy desire, and this is how we purge the passions and become satiated through wisdom and becoming the purely rational man. Thus, Cicero also is one of the first intellectuals in philosophy to advocate this notion of the rational life as the good life. And, of course, Cicero thinks this has direct consequences to political community. Cicero continues this compulsion in human nature to do good for others and to protect community as a result of our communitarian and social animus. This is where he takes shots again against the Epicureans, who advocate flight into the countryside and abandonment of worldly politics for the life of pleasure and ease. As Cicero writes, "Yet it is not enough to possess moral excellence as a kind of skill, unless you put it into practice. You can have a skill simply by knowing how to practice it, even if you never do, whereas moral excellence is entirely a matter of practice." Cicero is now logically connecting the dots. If humans are social animals, then why should they abandon the most social of organically evolved bodies, the civil political? Humans should be engaged in the realm of the civil precisely because they are social animals, and the civil political is the highest evolved body of human sociality that also allows for the putting into practice knowledge and moral excellence to serve a most basic aspect of our human nature. As he concludes, its most important field of practice, moreover, is in the government of a state. It is important to remember the time when Cicero was writing. Like with the other Roman Stoics who took cues from him, this is the late Republican period. The wars of the triumvirate are brewing. The impassioned plebeians threaten to overturn the Republic by hoping to have their passions fulfilled by a dictator, Julius Caesar. And Cicero is obviously also writing this treatise to rally those aristocratic, gentlemanly, and educated members of Roman society to save the Republic. As mentioned in our other lectures on Roman Stoicism, Roman Stoic philosophy cannot be divorced from the fact that it has obvious political goals in mind. Nevertheless, Cicero's basic outline of human nature in the first two paragraphs of the Republic ring true to many and are already probably familiar to most of us. He asserts, as do Plato and Aristotle, that humans are social animals. Like Aristotle, he maintains this sociality has led to the organic evolution of the civil society, as the highest fulfillment of human social impulses. Following Aristotle, yet again, he argues that moral excellence is a matter of virtue ethics, cultivated by a combination of knowledge and habit. As we just quoted, it is no good to simply have knowledge without making it a habit or putting it into practical action. This should serve primarily, as Cicero says, the cause of politics. Cicero continues to argue that another reason for the engagement in politics is because it is larger than yourself. Here, Cicero rejects the sophists of ancient Athens. Politics is not about self-advancement through a comprehension knowledge of political structures and laws, e.g. ethical egoism, the type advocated by the sophists, but that engagement in politics is yet again a part of our social animus, our want to do good for others, and to put into practice our knowledge and moral excellence. As Cicero writes, "Yet being the sort of man I was, I did not hesitate to brave the wildest storms, and almost the very thunderbolts themselves to protect my countrymen, and, by risking my own life, to win peace and security for all. For our country did not give us life and nurture unconditionally, without expecting to receive in return, as it were, some convenience, providing a safe haven for our leisure and a quiet place for our relaxation. No, it reserved the right to appropriate for its own purpose the largest and most numerous portions of our loyalty, ability, and sagacity, leaving to us for our private use only what might be surplus to its needs." In this most striking passage, Cicero is doing multiple things, all rooted in his understanding of what it means to be human. First, as already mentioned, engagement in political life is the fulfillment of sociality for the intellectual and the knowledgeable. It is what you are, in some sense, called to do, compelled by human nature. Second, Cicero claims that in this knowledge of sociality and patriotism, he himself was compelled into action to protect his home and countrymen. As he wrote, "I did not hesitate to brave the wildest storms, and almost the very thunderbolts themselves, to protect my countrymen." This is again, like with Aristotle, the result of knowledge leading to action which cultivates habit as the outcome of knowledge. It is not merely good enough to know. The important question is, how do you act? Additionally, Cicero's traditionalism is on full display when he makes the argument for patriotism wrapped up in his statement over human sociality. Humans as social animals naturally seek love, but we must also know what to love and what love is. Love is not simply an emotion or passion. It is something nurturing. It is also something social. It is something that embodies companionship that is greater than yourself. Love of self is not love at all. Love always entails others and relationships. Love entails a coming into union with another. Cicero extends this logic to the country. The country is like the extended family. This is rooted in pietistic filialism. Ah, Rome, sweet mother of us all. Rome is mother to the Romans. She has nurtured them with her lands, filled their stomachs with her resources, and now calls upon her sons and daughters to defend her in her moment of need. This is the true root of patriotism, the love of the land, or the love of the fatherland, patri, the word father, and fatherland, which is where patriotism comes from. It is also, to this extent, the love of one's brothers and sisters, who also live in the household, so to speak, our neighbors. This is the rootedness deep within human nature that leads us to attachment, and that attachment is the first sign of our sociality and love. It subsequently expands as one grows older and wiser. We are social animals, but we are also animals with roots and attachments, not simply to others, but to our homes, our land, which acts in a metaphorical but still true way as our parents, so to speak. Thus Cicero says he understands this filial love that is part of our social animus, which is why he willingly braved the storms for his countrymen and fatherland. All of this is just from the first few pages of reading the Republic. One should be able to see just how dense a philosophical reading this work can be, especially since Cicero does more than just comment on human nature and anthropology in the first book. We will look at the second part of his commentary over politics in another lecture. Continuing onward toward the middle of Book 1, Cicero defines a republic as the property of the public. This entails a notion of common good, common cause, and common sacrifice. Once again, we see the social reality embedded into this notion. This is another buttress against the Epicureans in between the lines. In order to have a republic, there must be a common good, a common cause, and common sacrifice that binds the people together. Cicero thinks this is going to be a notion of right and wrong, of morality, and he is not without his detractors. Nevertheless, this common moral excellence is what binds a republic together because it comes about through knowledge, wisdom, and engagement. Knowing right and wrong is what leads to actions and allows for common good, common cause, and common sacrifice to manifest itself in the republic, which is the property of all. Anyone who is familiar with the writings of the American Founding Fathers will hear echoes of Cicero in the notion that only a virtuous people, a patriotic people, can sustain a republic. And for those who want to know, the Founding Fathers extensively read Cicero, the two most famous being Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. But is any kind of public association a republic? No. As Cicero states quite clearly, a public is not every kind of human gathering, congregation in any manner, but a numerous gathering brought together by legal consent and the moral interests of a community. Here is the common good, the common cause, and the common sacrifice that I just spoke of. People who gather together simply to live do not constitute a republic. For readers of Hobbes and Locke and the liberal tradition in political philosophy, Cicero has harsh implications, since Hobbes and Locke assert exactly the opposite. A republic or commonwealth is simply an association of people who have gathered in their weakness to have life and self-advancement in society. It is as if Cicero anticipated the rise of Hobbes and Locke when he writes, "The primary reason for its coming together, that is, the public's coming together, is not so much weakness as a sort of innate desire on the part of human beings to form communities. For our species is not made up of solitary individuals or lonely wanderers. From birth, it is of such a kind that, even when it possesses abundant amounts of every commodity," the page is missing, but we can probably intuit where he was going. To be fair, Cicero, of course, is not critiquing a future Hobbes and Locke. He is still critiquing the Greek Cynics and Epicureans. However, we can see that from Cicero's reflections that the human coming together in community is moral and social in impetus. That is what sets him apart from later political philosophers who argue that our forming of community is based on weakness. Thus, when reading Cicero's Republic and looking at his commentary over human nature, we see several things with profound political implications. First, humans are social animals. Second, as a result of humans being social animals, the realm of the civil political is the organic continuity of our social animus manifesting itself. Third, knowledge translates into action and power. It is not good enough to know and to do nothing about it. The question is, how does one act with the knowledge and virtue that they have cultivated from knowledge? In other words, it is not good for a wise man to simply stay away from public life. Fourth, Cicero argues it is entirely natural to love one's land, one's countries, and one's neighbors. This patriotism is the outgrowth of our social animus. In fact, this is part of what it means to be human. We have rootedness and attachment not just to others, but to the land, which can be understood, metaphorically, as a sort of parent who has nurtured us. Thus, just as we love our biological parent, hopefully, we also love our adopted parent, the country we live in. This is natural, Cicero tells us. Fifth, not all associations of peoples are republics. In fact, a republic is only an association of people united in something, with a moral foundation to it, common good, common cause, and common sacrifice. Sixth, this association is the result of human nature and organic evolution, not weakness, because, as Cicero states, "For our species is not made up of solitary individuals or lonely wanderers. Our coming together is to achieve moral excellence in a community, because in that community we have the ability to manifest our moral excellence and virtue." Cicero, like Aristotle, is another virtue ethicist and virtue political theorist, and virtue best manifests itself through the love and duty to one's fellow countrymen in political life.